So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's really fantastic to see everyone in the room. It's also an enormous pleasure to share the stage with such distinguished guests that were here speaking just before me. It's a pleasure to be back in Turkey. I was here last year with the first event organized by Photon, and of course there's been just an enormous change, not only in the market, but of course the developments in Turkey, and of course the work of Photon more broadly as well. I'm Jared. I'm the Executive Director of the IREC Standard Foundation. Of course, we are a nonprofit organization. We work to develop international standards with local implementation. This is our goal. Our goal is to have a communication system across the world for communicating carbon claims, so that a company in China, a company in Turkey, a company in Africa, a company in South America can all use the same communication system, and that communication system can be implemented locally. It is your system. It is a national system, but it is a national system that can communicate across borders in a simple and easy way. The communication system that we all use moving forward to communicate the carbon claims of various products should be the easiest thing to do. It shouldn't be the most complex. And our goal is to make sure that there is a tracking system in place that allows products, simple and complex, to be communicated with all stakeholders, all regulators, and all national authorities. And the history of this is a familiar picture. Now, I think almost all of you have seen the picture behind me in one way or another. It's corporate companies trying to consume renewable electricity and making a claim, we want to procure 100% renewable electricity. I've been on the technical advisor group of RE100 since the founding of that organization, when it was only 10 or 12 companies. It's now 350 companies that have said, for all of our global operations, we want to procure 100% renewable electricity. And since then, it's not just RE100, it's also CDP, it's Science-Based Targets Initiatives, it's WRI. There's just an enormous amount of organizations that are working with the same fundamental goal to provide clarity in the carbon emissions of individual companies, and also, of course, clarity as to how this is being communicated as well. But this is actually quite a new picture. So for me, that's been working in the industry for quite a while, it's still impressive to see so many companies that say they want to procure 100% renewable electricity. But when you realize that companies reporting to CDP, which is formerly the Carbon Disclosure Project, are now totaling more than 80,000 companies reporting their Scope 2 emissions, you know that this isn't a fad. This is something that every company is doing, that they're really moving towards as well. But what's interesting with this is that it's always been this way. This was always the goal. Looking on the screen right now, you'll see something from our office. This is from our office in the Netherlands, and on the right there's a certificate. And the certificate says the green label. And it says in Dutch then, proof of delivering renewable electricity in 1998. And it was at that time signed for Peter Neermeyer, who was the first chairman of the board of the IREC standard. It was for 10 megawatt hours. Now, the fundamental basis, this is arguably the first ever REC anywhere in the world, this certificate in front of you. And the basis, the core element of that REC at that time was for proving the delivery of renewable electricity to always about proving to the end user the use of renewable electricity. So this slide is actually just an expansion of that initial idea from 1998. But what I want to try and convince you of today is that this slide and this slide are already changing, and it's already, to some degree, old-fashioned. The way we've been able to develop these markets over time has really been, quite a remarkable change. We're talking about millions and millions of hours of stakeholders working together on tables to be able to discuss and improve tracking systems around the world, the North American REC market, the European Guarantee of Origin market, and the IREC standard market. There are some people in the room here today that were part of really those pioneers setting up these markets at the very, very early days. And we've gone from a place where we've got a simple, certificate that is being printed out, this could be copied, all these sorts of things, to a modern system with rules, regulations, best practices, with markets, with exchanges, with local issuers, with government involvement, regulation, and lots of different stakeholders. We've come to a place where really these markets are mature, and they have allowed us to develop what we are, where we are today. So from 1998, if you look at this top slide, that's from arguably about 1995 or so, you could see the emissions of the power sector are increasing until today. Today is arguably the first time where power sector emissions in both advanced and emerging economies are going to be decreasing moving forward. And this is very much to thank for a lot of different things. Of course, subsidies played a role, obviously. But what also played a role was the demand of end users to want to procure renewable electricity. And in that time period, you can see as well here, this is another slide from 1995 until today. In 1995, there was essentially no renewables. We forget this, but there were essentially no renewables on the grid, only hydroelectric power. And especially since 2025 and 2010, there's just been an enormous growth. So we've got a lot to thank for corporate companies that have chosen to procure renewable electricity. But it's only the first step, and we're making that change now. So 25 years later, after that publication of that first certificate, we are moving not away from corporate social responsibility, but beyond corporate social responsibility. We're moving beyond voluntary, and we're moving beyond demand-driven. We're already seeing required disclosure. You have to do it. You're seeing required compliance. These are the rules. And you're seeing required supply of these certificates around the world. Every morning, when I have breakfast, I live in the Netherlands. It's a cold, dreary place. It's not like here in Turkey. That is, of course, warm and very inviting. But I have an orange every day for breakfast. And that orange can't grow in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is a cold place. There are no citrus trees anywhere. So my oranges are coming from Spain or they're coming from Turkey. So every day when I eat that orange, I'm eating, fundamentally, Spanish or Turkish water. The water is contained within that orange. That orange is put onto a boat. It is shipped to me in the Netherlands, or is put onto a truck and shipped to me in the Netherlands. And then I'm eating that orange. I'm fundamentally eating your water or Spanish water, where that orange is coming from. And arguably, all of the products we use around the world are no different than that orange. And this is where we are moving. We are going to be looking not at companies, but at the products they are producing. And we are going to be requiring that not companies, but individual products are procuring renewable electricity, so that I know that that water in that orange was good. I know that the electricity in that aluminum came from a renewable source. This is the direction we're moving in. So we're not moving away from corporate social responsibility, but we're talking about a different form of social responsibility. And this form of corporate social responsibility will become mandatory. We're already seeing that today through requirements of stakeholders and governments around the world. So you see here, this is a real-life example. This Celestial is renewably produced aluminum that is being delivered from Emirati Global Aluminum in Abu Dhabi to BMW and is being used in the tires and the wheels of every BMW car. BMW has already said, we want now all of our wheels to be made by renewably produced aluminum, and in the future we want all of the aluminum in our cars to be coming from renewable generated sources. So this was a test. This was the first test that they did, but it isn't going to be the last. It's going to move to aluminum, it's going to move to steel, it's going to move to fertilizers, it's going to move to hydrogen, it's going to move to every industrial commodity. And as we said, whether we like it or not, there will be requirements around the world that will require us to disclose the carbon emissions of our commodities to our trading partners. So whether it's a requirement, for example, under CBAM, which is a European requirement, and by the way, CBAM is also being discussed in other economies as well, including in Japan, including in the UK, and even in the United States. So it could be a requirement like CBAM, or it could be a requirement of your trading partners, of your clients. And this is a requirement, yes. It's your choice to be able to deliver to your client, yes. But at the same time, you are delivering to your client a renewably produced product that will not only improve your image nationally, but it will also improve your ability to trade and sell products around the globe. And this is really the place where we are looking at now. And a country like Turkey has an enormous amount of ability due to the size, due to the land, due to the geography, due to the ability to develop renewable electricity, to really make a push for the industrial industries here to make sure that they are able to deliver to the clients of the future. So again, it's about moving from CSR, corporate social responsibility, to product accounting. So the foundations of these markets in the very beginning were about, the choice to choose renewable electricity, the choice to be able to lower your Scope 2 emissions. This moved into what I call consumer claim standards. So organizations like RE100 and CDP saying, listen, if you, dear company, want to procure renewable electricity, do it in this way, adherent to these rules. And this increased the recognition, it increased the value, and it increased the implicit requirement. No one's saying you have to do it, but implicitly, it's becoming part of a thing that a good business does. And then now, because of all the requirements that we're looking at around the world, we're moving to a focus on products. And that's all going to result in an increasing usage for renewable electricity, an increasing demand for renewable electricity. So we've got increasing voluntary demand, increasing mandatory disclosures, increasing product disclosures, all going through that market that we've been developing for 20 years in Europe, the US, in Turkey, and elsewhere around the world as well, all going through the funnel of those same market dynamics, and it's going to result in two things, increasing demand and increasing complexity. The increasing demand will, of course, be solved by more renewable electricity on the grid. And the increasing complexity, that's part of the goal of the IREC standard, to make this simple, to make this able to be easily implemented and communicated across the whole world. So we see our work as an umbrella of standards, working with the IREC for electricity, also working in the future. You'll hear about that today from speakers on the stage about the IREC for hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives, working with carbon dioxide removal, biomethane, point source reductions, methane intensity, allowing these standards to be locally implemented but internationally standardized, and allowing governments to decide what is best for them, but adherent to simple international standards that will ease the communications across borders. Our job is to support governments. This is why we work with governments all over the world, from the Middle East to China, to Africa, to South America. Our goal is to support national governments in being able to use these standards and communicate these claims across the world. And to do that, we also need stakeholders, we need end users, we need an entire ecosystem all working together. In English, you would say, all the noses are pointed in the same direction. If everyone is looking in the same direction, we are able to complete much, much more. And the IREC standard is only a small piece of this puzzle. We know that. We're a very small piece of this puzzle. But we want at least this piece of the puzzle to be so easy and so simple that it's just taken for granted. This is our goal. To make this portion of the puzzle, the communication system, the trading system, and the tracking system of carbon, to be so simple, it's just accepted for what it is. And the IREC standard does that by having different stakeholders working with these standard-setting bodies, by having registry operators, local issuers like Photon, and also platform operators like Photon to be able to develop these different products that are needed on a national basis. And everyone in the end is being supported by market players, the end users, and the device generators. And by having this three-layered system, we can have the needed checks and balances, the needed requirements to be able to provide the security and robustness that every country will need in the future. So with this, I thank you all for joining us today. It is extremely impressive to see all the interested stakeholders in the room, so I thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And again, it's an honor to be here with all of our distinguished guests from Turkey and from elsewhere around the world. And I thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ed, for being here.
Thank you.
And for that great presentation.